I don't know what kind of Lent you have had. A few people that I've talked to, and my own experience has been that of a descending Lent. Just this week, this weekend, this part of Lent, it's just been a hard time. There have been more temptations, and my mood hasn't been that good. Carrying around some sadness. I've been more tired and impatient. So the questions that run through your head are has the resolutions that I had, the disciplines for Lent, has all this been fruitless? Because I'm wondering if I'm going backwards. That's how it feels right now. So I hope that you've had a good Lent so far. We just have a little bit left. It's possible to have an ascending Lent also, where it's where you get better and you have more energy by the end, and you feel your love for God increasing. But mine has been a descending Lent, which actually puts us in a good place for the readings for today. So this is the third part of 3 parts. We started 3 weeks ago. On the third Sunday of Lent, we had the reading with Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. And Jesus revealed himself as living water that comes to quench the thirst of humanity for happiness and life. Last week, Jesus opening the eyes of the blind man is when Jesus reveals himself as light, as the light of the world, as opposed to the enemy of darkness. And then this Sunday, 5th Sunday of Lent, Jesus reveals himself as life. But it's very important. He doesn't just say, I am life. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. And it's important because the resurrection is hard news, actually. It's very good news to know that Jesus has conquered death, and we will live forever, and we will be raised from the dead and have glorified bodies like him. That's great, but the resurrection is life after death. It's not life without death, and it's not a way around death. The path to resurrection and eternal life goes through death. And because of this, I'm tempted to complain, and I have before, plenty of times, to complain to God. Because what I want is something else. What I want is life without death. I want to be saved from death so that I don't have to face it and don't have to go through it. And it's funny, because the complaint is sincere, but the truth is we cannot save ourselves, and all of us are entirely lost if we are not rescued. And when rescue comes, when salvation comes, I think God should have taken my advice and saved us in a different way. So the resurrection is good news, but it's hard news. Because here we are, though we're set free from slavery to death, and we no longer need to fear it because in some ways it's been declawed. It's been turned into the doorway to eternal life. We still deal with death and its companions, weakness and illness and suffering and loss. Is this unfair? Is this the wrong way or a bad way to save the world? Of course it is not. But this is the Paschal mystery. How is it that death is overcome? How is it that we are saved from eternal death? The Paschal mystery, that is the conquering of death and the rescuing of humanity, is not accomplished by the incarnation. It is not accomplished by Jesus' preaching or healing or power. It is accomplished by his love that gives itself entirely, even to death on the cross. The way to resurrection for us, joined to Jesus, is the same way. We have to go through death. And so we live this life on earth with joy and hope and freedom, always celebrating Easter and always rejoicing in the resurrection, but also we experience death every day. And that's why sometimes we talk about living in a valley of tears on the way to the heavenly homeland. This is why we do funerals and not celebrations of life. This is why we take grief really seriously. And we it's kind of morbid to some people, but we sometimes we can wear black vestments, like a black chasuble at funerals. Because death, our experience of death, is a real serious, hard thing, even with the resurrection always in mind. Now, this also is very important. God is not indifferent to our experience of death on the way to eternal life. He doesn't say, listen, it's just for a little while. I know it's tough, but you just got to get over it. Or why are you afraid? You're headed in the right direction. Or like, why are you crying? The person's not lost. God is not actually indifferent to our experience of death or impatient with our sorrow and difficulty. So we just look at Jesus and how he honors the human experience of death. Today in the gospel, Jesus, who is life itself, who is the resurrection, he shows up at the grave of his friend, who he is about to raise from the dead, but faced with the reality of our experience of death, knowing that he has overcome death and is going to raise Lazarus, he weeps. He's deeply troubled. Even if it's temporary, it's still tragic. Also, in Jesus entering into our death, when he gets to the garden before he's arrested and ultimately taken to the crucifixion, he is in agony and anguish in the garden. And he cries out to his Father, Father, let this cup pass from me, but not as I will, but as you will. And his anguish is so intense that he sweats blood. Like, Jesus doesn't accept death like it's a walk in the park, or like, well, I just got to get through this thing, and then there's the resurrection, and it'll all be fine. It is not less terrible to him, even though he cannot be held by death. What's strange about this is that we can become desensitized to death, and our tears can dry up, and our hearts become hardened. We can become indifferent to death, but God does not. And so it's just incredible that God, who is greater than death, weeps. So this is Jesus. Jesus, who is the resurrection and the life. It's very, very important to remember what the resurrection is, because if we forget that the resurrection is life after death, eternal life through the gates of death, if we forget what the resurrection is, then we will often wonder whether God has abandoned us. But if we remember that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, then even on the darkest day, we will not lose hope and we will not fear that we have been forgotten.